And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Folks, there are a lot of games that have made a big splash over the years, but one that made a very exceptionally big splash was Puerto Rico. On the very popular board game site BoardGameGeek.com, Puerto Rico held the #1 spot for the longest time, and so I thought it would be a good idea for me to take a look at it. I do like it, and it's still in my collection. Now, I'm showing you here the Puerto Rico Limited Anniversary Edition. This edition is currently out of print, but you can still get regular Puerto Rico if you look for it. Basically, the difference between this one and the other versions is that this one includes a couple expansions and has much nicer components. But other than that, it's functionally the same. Let's take a quick overview of how the game plays. Each player of the game has their own player board where they have a city and they have a place to put plantations. They'll start with either a corn or an indigo plantation. It depends on player order. And then players are ready to go. One player is given the governor token to show that they go first, and off we are. Now, the way the game works is there's going to be different roles that players can select. And the number of roles is based on the number of players. There's 2 prospectors, and when it's your turn, each turn the governor will pick a role first. So let's say he picks the craftsman, then everyone else in turn order will pick one of these roles. If you pick the prospector, you just get a doubloon from the bank, a coin. But the rest of the roles, these 6 roles here are very important, because when you take one of these roles, everybody gets to take the action that role gives. However, the person who actually picks the card gets to take the action first, and they get a special benefit. When a player picks the settler role, everyone's going to get a new plantation. So in turn order, you'll pick one of these from the person who picked the role going around the board. Each person will take one of the available face-up ones. There's corn, indigo, sugar, tobacco, and coffee that may or may not be available. You'll turn over new tiles each time that they're chosen for the next time. The person who picked the settler can pick a quarry instead. A quarry doesn't produce any resources, but it can be used in the future to take costs off of buying buildings. Speaking of buildings, there's a lot of different buildings in the middle of the table. Here's the bank with the different coins, by the way. When a player picks building, everyone has a chance to build a building. The cost of each building is in the little circle there. For example, this large market here has a cost of 5 doubloons to build it. The red number is how many victory points that building is worth at the end of the game. And each building also gives a special ability. The exception are these big buildings here. They give no special ability, but they will give extra points, bonus points, at the end of the game. There's a ship here that has a certain number of colonists that are placed on it, and this depends on the number of players in the game. When somebody picks the mayor role, everyone's going to take colonists off this ship and add them to their town, and then it's filled up again, and the person who picked mayor will get an extra colonist added. When you get colonists, you're going to put them in the different buildings or on the different plantations, because if you don't have colonists in these buildings and in plantations, they're not going to work. And so you'll be able to add to the different spots on the board. And this leads directly into the craftsman. The craftsman produces goods for everybody. The person who picks it gets to produce 1 extra good. In this instance, when I'm producing goods, corn is special. If you have a plantation and a person working in your plantation, that will produce 1 corn good. But the rest of the goods, indigo, tobacco, sugar, and coffee, all need to have 1 worker on a plantation and a person in a matching building. So on this board here, I have a guy in a sugar mill, but I don't have a sugar plantation. I have a guy in a tobacco, but I don't have tobacco storage. I would need to have this building. I do have 2 guys in indigo, and 2 guys in this large indigo plant, so I would produce 2 indigo. And then if I was the person who had picked the craftsman, I would pick 1 more, so maybe I'll pick a 3rd indigo. Picking the trader lets you sell goods to the trading house. So I might sell, for example, 1 of my indigo for 1. And now if I'm the person who picked trader, I can sell it for 1 extra doubloon. And once indigo is sold to the trading house, no more indigo can be sold there. So you're going to have to wait till it fills up with 4 different types of goods. And at that point, it's cleared for the next round and you can start selling to it again. The final role is the captain role, and when someone picks the captain role, each player, starting with the person who picked the role, is going to have to load their goods onto one of the 3 ships here. Each ship has a certain number of spots. Again, this is determined by player order, and when it's your turn, you can load as many of a good on a ship as you want, but once this ship here, for example, has sugar on it, you can't put corn on this ship. You would have to put corn on a different ship. And if it came to you, and let's say there was coffee on this ship, corn and sugar on this ship, and all I have is indigo, I can't load that on the ship. In fact, when the phase is over, I have to discard all my goods except for 1. You can keep 1 barrel of good. Every time you load a good onto the ships, you will get victory points equal to each good that you put on the ship. And that's one of the main ways to get victory points. At the end of a round, everybody returns their rolls, and the 3 rolls that weren't picked by people have a coin placed on them, which makes them more enticing next time because you get to use that roll and get a doubloon off of that roll. The game can end in one of 3 ways. Either there's no more colonists left to put on the ship, all the colonists are gone, or there's no more victory points left when players are shipping goods, or one player has completely filled up their town. That round is finished off, and players will count up their points. They're going to add up the points in all their buildings. These bonus points from the big giant buildings don't work unless you have a guy at it, so you'll add those if you have any, and then you'll add all your victory point tokens, and whoever has the most victory points is the winner. Now that's not every role of the game, and I hope that you don't use that necessarily to understand how to play, but the game isn't difficult to understand how to play. The game is a little kind of annoying sometimes to set up if you play with less than 5 players because you use fewer colonists, you use fewer victory points, you use different ships. There's different things that you do based on the number of players who set up the game, and the game plays very differently, frankly, with 3, 4, or 5 players. There's 2 expansions included in this limited one, and you can buy at least one of those expansions separately. One adds more buildings, different buildings that you can switch out. There's all kinds of cool buildings in the original game, like there's a hacienda that when you put out a plantation, you can put out an extra plantation. A hospice that when you put out a plantation, you automatically put a guy in it. There's the large market. Whenever you sell goods to the market, you get an extra 2 coins. And there's all different buildings, and after a while, those might become samey, so this expansion adds different buildings. And then there is a second expansion included in this box, which adds nobles. They're little red guys who show up, and if one of these comes on each boat, and someone can grab him each time he comes, and these guys are worth a victory point at the end of the game, but there's also extra buildings that nobles, if they're working in these buildings, will give you a different benefit than a regular colonist. Now, what do I think about Puerto Rico? Well, I think Puerto Rico is a fantastically designed game. The idea of taking a role, doing that action, and everyone else taking the action, but the person who picks it gets a benefit is such a cool, innovative mechanism that's been followed up in other games, like even Twilight Imperium 3. And it was done even a little bit before Puerto Rico, but Puerto Rico kind of refined it. And really just the back and forth, because of the 2 ways to get victory points, by shipping lots of goods or by getting lots of money basically and buying buildings that are worth victory points. And each game is going to be different. There's not much luck in the game at all. Really the only luck is how the plantations show up, and then you just have to deal with what the other players do. Speaking of that, Puerto Rico is a game that highly is dependent upon other players. And by that is, if you go and play a 5-player game with Puerto Rico and you've never played before and the other 4 people have, they will have a distinct advantage over you. I mean, well, it doesn't mean it could be 3 or 4 players. If you don't know what you're doing, people who played before will do better than you. You say, well, so what? That's just how games work. Yes, but it's very well defined in Puerto Rico to the point where because the role you pick is immediately taken by the person after you, a new player can inadvertently really help the person to their left because that person gets to go directly after them and take advantage of you if you pick a role that you probably shouldn't have picked. Because there is a lot of times in this game where there is the right way to play. You know, and I hate that because I like the idea of going out and trying different strategies. Now, Puerto Rico allows you these strategies, but you could really set up the next person. Puerto Rico can be very cutthroat because players have to ship. You can force people to ship goods that they weren't really planning on shipping. You can buy buildings before other people can. This is a pretty cutthroat Euro game, even though it may not appear to be so. You say, Vasel, you're kind of all over the place. You're not really telling us if you like the game or not. I really do like the game. I wonder that I'm getting a little tired of playing with 5 players because it's a little bit more vicious and a little bit tighter grabbing the buildings. I think 4 players may be the sweet spot for the game. I also almost always play with the expansion so that the mix of buildings is different, so that there's not the automatic, oh, I should build this building, and this building. I think that that's not the best way to go as you play the game. I think it's good to have that shake-up. And I really like the Nobles expansion too. I like adding those into the game. I think the game is really well done, and when I play it, I feel like I've gotten a workout. When I lose Puerto Rico, it's usually because I can look back and say, here are the mistakes I made along the way. I don't know. This is the definition, I don't say this about many games, but this is the definition of elegance. And if you've never had a chance to play Puerto Rico, I highly recommend that you do. Although, try to find a casual game, because there's some Puerto Rico sharks out there, man. I'm serious, and they will eat you alive. But it can be a very fun game and a very rewarding one. And speaking from experience, rewards a lot of plays. I played Puerto Rico probably 50 plus times, and I'm still playing different ways each time. A great game designed by a great designer and worthy of your consideration, Puerto Rico.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!